A gunshot echoed through the cold Montana air. Snow covered the ground, but it couldn't bury the blood. The year was 1944. The war in Europe was ending, but another war was just beginning, one that would decide who would own the land for the next 100 years. Before the Yellowstone Ranch became the kingdom we know today, it was just a rough patch of earth. And the man who came back to claim it wasn't a hero. He was a haunted soldier with a name no one trusted. This is not the Yellowstone you remember. This is where it really started. In 1944, Montana looked very different. The roads were dirt. The barns were small and barely standing. Horses were more common than cars. There was no empire, no Yellowstone dynasty. Just broken people trying to build something that could last through the winter. Far away, World War II was still burning across Europe and the Pacific. But in the valleys of Montana, another kind of battle was waiting. A battle for land, for family, for a future. A man named Jacob Dutton, nephew of James Dutton from 1883, stepped off a train with nothing but a military bag and a limp in his leg. His uniform was dirty, his face was tired, he hadn't smiled in years. The people at the station didn't greet him. They looked at him like trouble had just arrived. And they were right. Jacob wasn't just any soldier. Rumors followed him like dust on the wind. Some said he had killed an officer in Italy. Others said he ran from his unit. No one knew the truth. But when he walked into the old cabin at the edge of the Yellowstone land, his younger brother Sam looked up with wide eyes. "You shouldn't be here," Sam said. Jacob just nodded. "But I am." The ranch wasn't much. A few horses, a few angry cows, and debts. So many debts. The land taxes were rising, the neighbors were circling like vultures, waiting for the Duttons to give up, and Sam, who had stayed behind during the war, was tired of holding it all together, alone. "We don't need more ghosts," he told Jacob. "We need help." Jacob didn't speak much. He walked the land in silence. He stood by the broken fence, stared at the mountains. He touched the old barn door like it was a memory. Something was buried deep inside him, something from the war. And whatever it wasn't gone. It was only hiding. That night, around the fire, their sister Mary asked the question no one wanted to ask. "Why did you come back?" Jacob stared into the flames. "Because I've got nothing else." The next morning, Jacob saddled a horse and rode into town. He passed by the saloon, the church, and the store. Whispers followed him. One man spit on the ground as he passed. Another muttered, "Murderer." But Jacob didn't flinch. He walked into the land office and laid a crumpled piece of paper on the counter. The clerk read it and frowned. "This is a claim to your father's land," he said. Jacob nodded. "He's dead. I'm next in line. Your brother's been running that land since you left. I'm not here to fight him. I'm here to save it." But saving the Yellowstone wouldn't be easy. A powerful cattleman named Rufus Hale had already made an offer to buy the land. He had guns. He had men. And he had the sheriff in his pocket. When he heard Jacob was back, he laughed. "Another Dutton thinking he can beat the land. Let's see how long he lasts." As night fell again over the valley, lightning cracked. In the distance, a storm was coming, not just rain and thunder, but something worse. Jacob Dutton had come home, and with him, he brought war. He wasn't the same boy who left. The war had changed Jacob Dutton, but no one knew just how deep. The change went. The land remembered him, but the people didn't trust him. And while Sam and Mary struggled to believe in the brother who had returned, Jacob began making quiet moves, fixing fences, cleaning tools, rising before dawn. But even as his hands worked, his eyes stayed distant, cold, like he wasn't truly there. That's when she arrived. Her name was Clara Browning, a nurse from the war, looking for the only man she had ever saved twice. Her uniform was gone, replaced by a long brown coat, a travel bag, and boots thick with road dust. She came riding from the east on a borrowed horse, cutting through the fog like a ghost. The moment she stepped onto Yellowstone soil, Mary narrowed her eyes. "Who is she?" Sam asked. Jacob didn't answer, but his hand clenched tight around his cup. Clara wasn't just a visitor. She held something that tied her to Jacob's past. Something dangerous. And it wasn't just memories of battlefield wounds. It was the letter. One night, Clara waited until the fire burned low and the rest had gone to bed. She slid the crumpled paper into Jacob's hand. He stared at it, unmoving. "You told me to burn it," she said. Jacob nodded slowly, still not opening it. "Why didn't you?" "Because you weren't done running yet." "But now you are." The letter was sealed, with an old army stamp. Inside was a truth that could destroy the family, or protect it if used right. It held a confession from a dying officer, one who had blamed Jacob for something he never did. The letter cleared his name, but it also named names. Names of officers still in power. Powerful men. Ruthless ones. Men who had paid to keep Jacob's mouth shut forever. Clara wasn't safe. She had already been followed once. A man with a scar across his neck tried to grab her near the Bitterroot Pass. She had escaped only by luck and a hidden pistol in her saddlebag. Now she was here, not just for Jacob, but because someone else knew she had the letter. And they were coming. Back at the ranch, trouble was already building. Rufus Hale wasn't just a land baron. He was an old friend of the very same men Clara was trying to expose. When he heard a woman had ridden in from the east, asking about Jacob, his interest sharpened. That night, Jacob stood under the stars, looking out at the dark hills. Clara joined him, her coat wrapped tight against the wind. "You didn't tell them everything," she said. "They don't need to know," Jacob answered. "They will soon." He turned to her, his voice like stone. "If it comes to it, you burn the letter. No one else should bleed for my past." But it was already too late. A man in a black coat watched from the tree line. He had followed Clara for days, silent, patient. Now he knew where she was, and he knew the name Dutton. Meme. Next chapter of the Yellowstone wasn't just about building a ranch. It was about surviving secrets, about enemies in the dark, and about one man's fight to protect his name, without becoming the monster the world thought he already was. The land didn't just need a builder now, it needed a fighter. Senom. Shunistme Jambar melted early that spring, but it didn't bring peace. It brought boots, heavy, unwelcome boots on Dutton land. Men loyal to Rufus Hale rode in like they already owned the place, smirking, spitting, measuring the fence lines. One of them even left a dead calf on the front gate, throat slit clean, blood spelling a message on the snow. Sell or bury. Jacob Dutton didn't flinch. He stood tall beside Sam and Mary, his hands steady, his eyes colder than the frost. "They want a war," Sam said. Jacob's voice was calm. "Then we give them one they'll never forget." But this wasn't a battle over cows. This was about history, about land soaked in the blood of people who fought, lived, and died for every inch. Long before the Duttons, this valley belonged to the Absolute tribe, who still lived just north in a reservation town called Wounded Sky. The Duttons had once made peace with them, but peace never lasts forever. Now, the tribe's young chief, Nash Black Elk, had his own reasons for watching Jacob closely. His father once rode with James Dutton and called him brother. But times had changed. Promises had been broken. "You claim the land like it loves you," Nash told Jacob when they met. "But land remembers betrayal." Jacob offered a hand. "Then let's start again." But trust doesn't come easy when blood has already been spilled, especially when someone is feeding both sides with lies. Rufus Hale had been digging through old deeds, and he found something powerful, a legal paper that questioned the Dutton family's original claim to the land. If proven, the ranch could be taken legally. Inside the ranch, things were cracking. Mary was losing sleep. Sam was drinking too much. Clara kept the letter hidden, even from Jacob. Every night she heard noises outside the cabin. Footsteps. Whispers. Once she found a bullet on her windowsill. No note. Just a bullet. Still, Jacob worked. He rode the fence lines, fixed the barn roof, marked cattle. Each sunrise brought more hardship, more pressure, but the ranch stood, just barely. Then came the ambush. Jacob and Sam were herding cattle through Dead Man's Ridge when gunfire cracked from above. Horses reared. Sam fell, blood, screaming. Men in dust-covered coats fired without warning. Hale's men. Jacob pulled Sam behind a rock, took a shot to the arm, but kept firing. It was fast, brutal. And when it was over, 3 men lay dead. One was still breathing, barely. Jacob knelt beside him. "Who sent you?" The man coughed blood. "You!" don't belong here." Jacob's hand didn't shake. "This land says I do." Back at the ranch, Mary broke down when she saw Sam carried in. She looked Jacob in the eyes and whispered, "How long until we lose everything?" Jacob finally opened the letter. His hands shook as he read. It wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about land, about deals made in Europe, secret payments, and stolen tribal ground. It was proof, but also a weapon. That night, Jacob stood with Nash Black Elk under the moonlight. "We can burn it all down," Jacob said, "or we can rebuild it together." Nash stared at him for a long time, then finally said, "One last chance, Dutton." Blood had been spilled. Legacy was on the line. And now, alliances were forming. Not out of friendship, but survival. Yellowstone was no longer just a ranch, it was a battlefield, and war was only beginning.